Beloved friends and family, we are gathered here today to witness the life of Theodore Edwin Danielson, known to most of us as Ted. Ted was a man of purpose and conviction. He stood up for what he believed in, and Ted was a man of dedication. He devoted himself to the things that were important to him. He was a member of this community for decades, and he performed almost every role the congregation had. If there was a need, Ted would step up. And then he moved to Allegria Village, and he performed almost every role Allegria Village had. When there was a need, Ted stepped up. You know, I didn't know Ted all that well. I became the minister of this church after he was mostly attending on Zoom. But I do have a favorite Ted story. You want to hear it? TED Talk. That's right, Beata. We're doing a lot of TED Talk today, aren't we? That's right. See, and he had witty friends. All right, so the thing is, when you're a congregational minister, a lot of times you have to hear like third hand when people are upset or what they're upset about. And then no matter what you do, you can't console them. That was not Ted. I always knew when Ted wanted something and when he was preferring something. And one time, we were having a congregational meeting. It's my first congregational meeting as a minister of this church. And the board had worked really hard on preparing a budget. And they were presenting the budget, and Ted had different ideas than the board about what this budget should be. And so he made a motion from the floor to change the budget. But here's the thing. He just said, this is what I think this ought to be. He wasn't malicious about it. He just said, this is my opinion and this is why. Well, the congregation didn't agree with him and ended up going with what the board wanted to do. I remember Diana Kohler, who's going to do the eulogy today, was the moderator at the time. So there you go for people that can disagree and still be friends. And then Ted said, I have something to say about this. And I thought, oh no. I don't know this individual, but I know church guys who have something to say about something. And he says over Zoom, we're sitting in this very room, Diana, it sounds like you have the church on your side. Good job. You know, that's rare. That's rare to hold such conviction and also hold community as primary. It was a beautiful lesson for me about what this community was going to be like to serve. A community shaped not in small part by Ted's presence and his work here. We're going to hear more stories about Ted from his friends and from his family and from Diana. But first, may we enter into this time of grief and remembrance, knowing that many of us are mourning Ted in different ways. We all had different relationships with him, and human relationships are complicated. But we have gathered here today to remember him and to celebrate the time that we spent with him and to process what he meant in our lives. May we know that the spirit of life moves on, and may we invite that spirit here to be with us today, to witness us and hold us. And may we know that our grief, while painful, is born of the love and relationship and connection that we had with Ted, something that enriched his life and ours. Unitarian Universalism is a religion that starts all of its services with a chalice lighting. It's a beacon that gets lit of welcome for anyone who is in need. And Ted has asked his good friend Ralph to come up and light the chalice here today. we light the chalice with words from the poem, "Death Was Never Meant to Scare Us." Death was never meant to scare us. That fear was taught. Long before clocks, borders, and hospitals, death was understood as a crossing, not an ending, a return, a release, a continuation. Our people didn't whisper death's name, they prepared for it. Not because they wanted to die, but because they knew how to live fully only when death was honored. Death was not a punishment. It is not a failure. It is not the opposite of life. It is part of the same circle. Excuse me. What hurts is not death itself. It's unfinished words, broken bonds, stolen time, and lives spent surviving instead of belonging. We grieve because love doesn't disappear when the body dies. We ache because memory is alive. We mourn because connection doesn't end at the grave. And when someone leaves this world, they don't vanish into nothing. They move into story, into dream, into wind, water, fire, and memory. That's why they visit us. That's why we feel them. That's why their names still carry weight. Death isn't the enemy. Forgetting is. Will you all join me in body and or spirit? Rise in body and or spirit and join me in singing our opening hymn, "Let It Be a Dance." There are hymnals they're gray hymnals on the chairs there, and the words are going to be up here as well. It's hymn number 311.
and a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to reap, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to laugh and a time to weep. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up and a time to break down, a time to dance and a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace, a time you may embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time for love and a time for hate, and a time for peace. I swear it's not too late.
I'd like to invite Ted's friend Alan up to give a reflection.
I've probably known Ted longer than anyone here, and maybe anyone anywhere at this point. I first met him when we were in Scouts together. I was maybe 11 years old. I'm going to be telling some of my remembrances. I'm also going to be reporting some that a friend of both of us who couldn't be here today, Jim Woodring, wanted to share with you. Jim commented, those who knew Ted already know he led a successful and honorable life. We're in Scouts. We're in the same patrol. This is a group of 6, 8, 10 kids. Go camping and do all the other scouting stuff together. We thought it'd be a good idea to build a box for the stuff to take on camping, the kitchen stuff and the food and that sort of thing. We've put a lot of effort into that. Had legs that we had things we could handles we could carry it, legs we could put down to make it into a table. I think we used it once. A bunch of us were high school friends. We were all science nerds, but Ted put us to shame when it came to math. We're often together at one of our homes after school or whenever. YMCA dances, good times for all. Jim recalled that after one of the high school formal dances, he double dated. He didn't remember either of the girls, but he did remember that Ted and his Cadillac were the mode of transportation, and they managed to get stuck in the sand. Getting home very late was not an option. They had to get that car out, and they managed to do it, but they were really relieved when no cell phones in those days. In chemistry class, Ted, Jim, and 2 other guys and I had a project for a family open house. We're demonstrating qualitative analysis. This is where you try to determine the different elements that are in the mixture that you're given. We each learned our part, and as people came through, we'd each explain what we were doing and why, what was working. After we finished and were cleaning up, Ted told me that my dad had really made him sweat. He asked him questions he had no idea about. My dad had been a chemistry major, which never showed anywhere else. When Ted was going to the University of Pittsburgh, Jim and I drove down to visit him. He showed us around the campus and regaled us with stories of his job as lab assistant as a rat stirrer. What is a rat stirrer? Well, there was a research project trying to measure stress hormones. And to do that, you have to stress the rats. They would do it by dumping rats into a bucket of water, a large barrel of water, actually. And that would generally stress most of them. However, there were a few who learned they could just sink to the bottom, hold their breath, swim up, take a breath, and sink back down. Okay, rat stirrers was necessary to stress those ones as well. After that, Ted brought home a couple of the hooded rats. These are white rats with a dark patch on their head. And they were quite tame. We had them out in the yard. He and I were sitting on the lawn and kind of with our legs spread and the rats between, forming a little bit of an enclosure. Well, while we're doing this, he picked up one of the rats and put it into my pant leg. It started running up, as a rat you might do. I grabbed my pant leg to keep it from going any further, so he put the other one in my other leg. This left me with a bit of a predicament. I didn't want to bend my knees because I'm going to crush the rat, maybe, and that didn't seem good for either me or it. Anyhow, looking back, it's quite amusing. At the time, not so much. Ted, Jim, and I, with our young families, went camping in the Smoky Mountains. We set out to explore some back roads. Picture dirt, narrow back road. We came on a rusty old pickup truck with two guys out walking around, a truck blocking the road. We got out to see if they needed any help. Oh, no, we don't need any help. Let your image go to the stereotype. That's who we're dealing with, okay? One of the guys said he just shot a rattlesnake, and he was going to cut off the rattle. And Ted said, well, what are you going to do with the rattle? He said, I'm going to hang it on my fiddle. So we were interested. It was interesting to meet these folks. They are now my neighbors. I'm from Eastern Kentucky. Years passed and we kept in touch, but didn't go on any more adventures. I got a call from Jim who asked if we were going to Ted's wedding. I said, yeah, we were thinking about it. Did he know anything about the woman he was marrying? He said, get the invitation and read it again. When I discovered it was Priscilla from high school, I was just speechless. I didn't know. The wedding was planned outdoors at sunrise in the mountain Unitarian retreat in the Smoky Mountains. We all stayed in cabins there. We got up to overcast and drizzle. After we were all in our seats, the minister stepped out, the rain stopped, the sun broke through just over the mountains, and Ted and Priscilla had a wonderful beginning to their life together. The way the weather broke makes me wonder whether they had some special connection. We're so glad when Ted and Priscilla invited us on a cruise to the South Pacific to see an eclipse. We'd seen photos and videos, had no idea what it was like to have them as guides to, they'd been to many eclipses, and have the friends, guides, and it was the South Pacific besides Marquesas and Tahiti. We had a great time. Thank you for thinking of us back then. There's more I could share, and I'm going to stop now, but just a few words from some of the other things I thought about. A quote. You've been eating peanut butter. More double dating stories. Ted's towing service to the rescue. Camping with bears and poison ivy. Matchmakers. You know who they are. The costume party, a whip. But forgive me, I've gone on too long. Priscilla, may you find peace with the memories that you and Ted made together.
Thank you, that was beautiful. I'd now like to invite Barbara Wallace, another dear friend of Ted's, up to do a reading.
This is a reading that comforted Priscilla. It's called Instructions Before Visiting Earth. In the event you wake up and find yourself in human form, don't panic. Your condition is only temporary. You have been selected for the opportunity of human incarnation, which will break up the monotony of eternity by giving you a fully immersive experience as a distinct ego identity. Your body will serve as your physical avatar as you navigate a dense and dramatic reality. There will be many distractions causing you to forget your true nature and origin. You will experience a range of emotions, from joy to loneliness to despair. At times, you may feel lost or afraid. This is totally normal. If you ever need guidance, simply slow down your busy mind and bring your awareness to the quiet place inside yourself. On this planet, nothing is permanent. People and things will come and go. You will fall in love and form sentimental attachments, only to lose everything you hold dear. So cling to nothing too tightly, even yourself. And when it's time to let go with grace. For nothing is owned, only borrowed. As you walk among the people on the planet, try to be a good guest. Don't make a mess. Listen more than you speak. Give more than you take. Don't keep your soft heart locked inside a glass cage, protected from wear and tear. You'll never make it out alive, and time passes quickly. So come back with some battle scars and good stories to tell.
There's a moment in the memorial when somebody speaks about the person that has passed in depth. Sometimes it's the minister and sometimes it's the family. And when we were thinking about who to do for this one, Priscilla looked at me and she said, I think it's got to be Diana. So Diana Kohler, will you come up and give the eulogy, please?
Ted was born on August 12th, or no, August 22nd, see, I'm revising his life already, 1943 in Meadville, Pennsylvania, to Floyd and Mila Danielson, joining his brother Bud and his sister Jackie. After graduating from Meadville High School, he earned undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of Pittsburgh, where he met his first wife, Anne. They married in 1965, moved to Detroit, and Ted began his career at Ford Motor Company. Ted and Ann had 2 children, Wendy and Christopher. Sometime after their divorce, Ann moved to Boston and Wendy went with her while Christopher stayed behind with Ted in Michigan. In 1993, after being single for more than a decade, Ted married Priscilla. He took advantage of an early buyout from Ford, then completed yet another master's degree in taxation from Walsh College, became a CPA, and ultimately ended his career working for the IRS. Those are the basic facts of his life, but they don't describe who Ted was. He was a lifelong learner. He was fascinated by an eclectic variety of topics: train travel, solar eclipses, the Titanic, and parliamentary procedure, to name just a few. And he loved sharing his knowledge with others. He must have had a really lively imagination, because he had the capacity to envision the most unlikely and potentially disastrous outcomes of any situation. He saw threats in so many places and felt it was his responsibility to figure out how to hold off those worst-case scenarios. I've often thought that he was so fascinated with the Titanic because he knew that someone could have prevented that disaster if they had just done better planning. That ability to see what might happen could be both a superpower and a source of frustration for those who worked with him on a project. He studied the legal issues around the bankruptcy of Alegria Village so extensively that Priscilla wondered if he had really wanted to be a lawyer. Those of us who worked with Ted on the board here or committees at Northwest might have felt a bit of frustration with him from time to time, because he put so much time and energy into preemptively fixing problems that didn't exist. But I think he was motivated by his deep connection to his faith and to this congregation. Christopher shared with me a rule he felt his father lived by: every problem requires consulting an expert, and the corollary to that is that every problem requires purchasing a book for guidance. Ted was generous with his time and expertise, volunteering at Northwest in the Unitarian denomination, at Alegria Village's Residence Council, and doing tax preparation work through the AARP. But he wasn't all work. Ted loved to play, too. He was an avid duplicate bridge player for much of his adult life and has been described as a fierce, or maybe more than fierce, competitor in Scrabble. He had a great sense of humor and found much in the world around him that amused him. He often followed his wry observations with a quick giggle and a head shake. And Ted could be surprisingly whimsical and romantic. Those of you who attended his and Priscilla's wedding may remember that he wore very formal attire, including a morning coat, a ruffled shirt, top hat, spats, and suspenders, braces, embroidered with naked women. And if you would like, you can see those braces outside on the memorabilia table. Ted and Priscilla had known each other since high school, when she dated one of Ted's best friends. Ted and Priscilla had exchanged Christmas cards for years, and in 1993, Priscilla became curious about how Ted was doing, and she called him. Their first phone call lasted nearly 3 hours and began a courtship conducted largely by phone and through letters, as she was in Florida and he was in Michigan. They just knew they belonged together. This may be one of the few times in his life when Ted's worst-case scenario thinking didn't kick in. Instead, he married Priscilla, as you've heard, at sunrise on a deck overlooking the Smoky Mountains on October 17th, just 6 months after the first time they laid eyes on each other in more than 30 years. I want to point out that when I mentioned to Ted that Ralph and I were getting married, I got a 15-minute lecture on how second marriages never work. Ted loved deeply, and it wasn't just Priscilla. I heard lots of stories about his children's growing up years, and yes, many of his worries at the time, too. He was understandably devastated by Wendy's death after a car accident just weeks after she started college. He once said, "You never get back to normal after the death of a child, you just get used to the loss." But he used his own experience to help others support people they knew who had suffered terrible losses. And out on the memorabilia table are copies of a workshop that he created. And if you feel you would be helped by that, please take a copy. Some of you know that Christopher is a mathematics educator. If you are a member of this congregation, you probably know that because every time Christopher had a new book published, Ted would announce it in Joys and Sorrows, and then he would walk around in coffee hour, book resting on his chest, inviting conversation about Christopher and his latest book. Ted also loved being a grandfather to Griffin and Tabitha, particularly traveling with them and introducing them to places and activities that were important to him, including UU family retreats in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where he had enjoyed similar activities with Wendy and Christopher. I had the privilege of see, I'm getting to the part that makes me feel a lot, so I'm choking up. I had the privilege of witnessing his connection to his grandchildren on New Year's Eve, 3 days before his death. I was at the hospital with Priscilla, and it was clear from the moment we arrived that Ted was already far, far away. He held Priscilla's hand and gestured once to indicate that he was thirsty, but mostly he was either sleeping or unconscious. Tabitha texted Priscilla and asked if she could FaceTime with Ted, and I was sure he wasn't alert enough to respond. But Priscilla asked him, and he emphatically nodded his head. That was the most energy we had seen from him all evening long. During their call, he never opened his eyes, but he worked hard to muster enough energy to ask her questions, and he was obviously following everything she said. A bit later, he and Griffin had their final conversation, and once again, Ted was aware and responsive. It was so touching to see how important you were to him and how thoughtfully you both interacted with him. I was proud of you on your parents' and your grandparents' behalf. Once those conversations were over, Ted relaxed, as if he had completed the last thing he needed to do. He rested peacefully from then until his death on January 3rd. Ted was a complicated person, as I expect we all are. He wasn't always easy, but couldn't that describe each of us? At his core, however, I believe that Ted was a man who loved deeply and wanted to protect whoever and whatever he loved.
There have been so many beautiful words spoken about Ted already here today. Priscilla has asked me to extend that invitation forward to the gathered community. So if anyone here at this time has something that they would like to say, a short story, an anecdote, a memory, please raise your hand and I will come forward. Please raise your hand and I will come forward with the microphone. But I would love it if I could start with 2 remembrances that were sent in to the memorial page. Hi, Priscilla. What a lovely obit. I laughed at the sentence about Ted liking to explain things and debate with people. LOL. I had a few of those myself with him. And his laugh, it makes me smile remembering, sending you and the family so much love from Virginia. So much love, Virginia, from Bayside. And this comes from John and Sue. I was sorry to hear of Ted's recent death. I have fond memories of sitting at lunch tables hearing Ted's story and his laugh. I'm sure that makes your home a quiet place now. I hope you have the support you need and are getting along well these days. May he have good views of all the solar events from now on.
Hear me? Oh, yeah, okay, good. So my name is Linda Gobeski, and I worked with Ted. I've known him for I had known him for 30 years or so. And one year with our former minister, she asked Ted and I to do a service because both of us had lost our daughters. And so we did, and we couldn't believe that anybody would really want to hear that service, on death. But, Kimmy was sure it would be fine. So when we got here that Sunday morning, this whole room was filled with people, and we stood over here by the memorial garden and gave a service on what it's like to survive the death of a child. And that's one thing I will never forget about Ted and be forever grateful for doing. But the other thing is that listening to his giggle.
I'm Julie Sigler and had the privilege of moving into Henry Ford Village, becoming Allegria Village later, with Priscilla and Ted. And they were about the first people that, even before we moved in, they matched us up. The marketing matched us up, and we shared several times together, I think. And since then. Well, Ted and Priscilla moved in, and everybody knew that Ted had moved in. There was no pause between moving in and figuring out what it was that needed to be done. So I do remember that Ted just didn't realize maybe that some people were uncomfortable, feeling as if they were getting pushed around a little. And I finally thought, this guy just doesn't realize. So I remember taking a deep breath in, clenching my stomach, and saying, Ted, do not say what you're going to say at the next meeting. Just don't do it. And the thing is, he listened to me. It just, you know, he really was perceptive. So I always appreciated that he was a guy that I could say, too far, and he actually listened.
I'm Beata Lamparski. I'm a member of this church. And I was really surprised to see Ted's birth date. I thought for sure we were both Taurus under that sign because we clashed so much. We really did. Sometimes I thought it's easier to dislike Ted than it is to like him. But in reality, I admired two things that Ted did in this church that stood out in my mind. One is when we were getting ready to enter into a contract with our last called minister, that lovely, meek person asked for something. She asked for a Section 125 cafeteria plan, which nobody had ever heard of. But Ted, bless him, went and researched it all, wrote up a policy that was adopted, and that was all she wanted. That she asked, and she got it, and several other members of the staff benefited from that plan as well. And I was very impressed with all of that work he did because of his love for the church and for Kimmy. And the other memory that stands out is that Ted suggested that it was time to change the name of our church. Oh my gosh. He said, look, back in the 50s, Northwest was a place. It was northwest of Detroit. But now the development has grown up around it, and now we're a little dot in southeast Oakland County. We're nothing. I think it's time to change our name. Well, that was really, really fought, and that idea was put down. But I think now that maybe he had foresight, because the actual direction of our church, that perhaps in the near future, that may really happen to better reflect where our church is in relation to First Church and our overall community. So thank you, Ted, for preparing me for that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ron Foster. Hi, Priscilla. Long-time, oldie-timey member of the church, and I had known Ted for many years. I just wanted to mention two things that came to mind for me. One was I was on the board for through a couple of people, and The first time I was on the board, the meetings went forever. I mean, there would be an ending time, and it would go on for like 2 hours afterward. And I would get home at night, and I was like a dish rag afterwards. And then Ted took over, and Ted had agendas, and he would point out when we were going to do things, and he would stop people, and we would get to the end, and he would say, okay, these are the items for the next meeting, and we are done. And that was Ted. And I went, man, I like this guy. This is really cool. And then another thought that I had was, we still have a men's group that meets for lunch. And then Ted moved to Henry Ford, and he didn't meet with us in person for lunch, but there was a Facebook. Is it Facebook? Zoom, yes, it was a Zoom. So sometimes we had conservative people, and sometimes we have liberal, many times we have liberal people involved. And obviously there was some contention from time to time. And I knew what Ted's views were. He tended to be a rather liberal kind of person. But someone who was conservative would say something, and then Ted would say something, and I would go, what? This is not Ted. And then he would engage in conversation, the person who was the conservative person. And after a few times of this, I realized he was like using the Socratic method. He was like playing along and trying to like use dialogue to bring out what this person really felt. And also, he also liked to indicate contradictions that people had in their arguments. He was really good at that. Ted was a really smart guy. And I really enjoyed listening to him bring out people's ideas during these meetings. When I knew what his position was, he would sometimes take the opposite position just to have a conversation with people. And I really enjoyed that about Ted. In fact, it was fun to listen to him do this. So these are two of my remembrances of Ted. He was a lovely person, and I liked him a lot.
My name's Colleen, and I was associate moderator of this congregation when Ted was the moderator. And I think I was the third associate moderator that Ted had because Ted had his ideas about how things would run and wasn't really good at sharing the power. We had several meetings. I remember sitting in Kimmy's office, and sometimes they would end with me in tears and Ted completely flummoxed, not understanding at all what I was trying to say. And me completely flummoxed, not understanding why he didn't understand me. It was just kind of frustrating. But in retrospect, we made a pretty good pair because he was like very measured. He knew what he wanted, how he was going to do it. This is what, everything was like, that's how it was going to be. And I was kind of the opposite. I was like, well, we should give people an opportunity to talk about this. And, you know, I was more of the people person. So it kind of worked out. But I the thing I appreciated most about Ted was his financial acumen. He was on the finance committee for a very long time. He knew money, something I didn't care to learn. And so I really appreciated that from him. And we did a good balancing act for a while.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Urachko. I worked with Priscilla for many years, and you know I've missed you ever since you retired, Priscilla. I met Ted a handful of times, but I really felt like I knew him and the family from all the times Priscilla and I spent enjoying lunch together and talking, and I really enjoyed those working years with you. Back in 2019, my mom passed away, and Priscilla and Ted came to the funeral. And at their church, a big contention through the years was that there was no good way to get someone in a wheelchair into the church. It wasn't accessible, and my parents had been frustrated about that for a long time, and Ted put up a big stink at the funeral about that and really gave it to the pastor. And I'm actually thankful he did that. Unfortunately, you know, I thought, well, that was good. An outsider came in and really made an issue out of this. Something's going to happen. Well, it didn't. But I'm really thankful that Ted did that, because it was a big issue and it was something that someone needed to say, and he did. And it sounds like he did that for a lot of different things.
Uncle Ted did. I was trying not to, but my husband said, you have to tell that story, so I'm telling it. Okay, can you hear me better? All right, thank you. What was it you said that you told him not to, and he listened, right? Well, there was this little girl, our niece Amanda. So I'm Karen's daughter, Debbie. I don't think I said that. This is my Aunt Priscilla. I got to spend a lot of time with my Aunt Priscilla as a girl growing up, but I didn't know my Uncle Ted until after my niece Amanda was born. So anyway, my niece Amanda came to visit us in Vermont at my mom's house, and Aunt Priscilla and Uncle Ted were also there. Well, Amanda was only this high, and he has these long arms, right? And he's sitting at the chair, at the table. Do you remember this? Do you remember this? And she's, running back and forth, and he reaches out his long arm, and he'd stop her, and she'd run back, and then it was, like a game between the two of them, and he was having so much fun, and he'd get her and giggle her, and she'd run away, and eventually she just said, "Stop that!" And he did. He just stopped.
For these and all of the memories that remain in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, and the ones that we will tell over food during the reception, and the ones that will come to our minds a month from now and we'll feel like we need to call up Priscilla and tell her. We raise them up. We ask them to offer deep peace. We stand first in our minds, and then we toddle from hand to furniture. Soon we are walking away from the house and lands of our ancestral creator gods to the circles of friends, of schooling, of work, making families and worlds of our own. We make our way through storm and sun. We walk side by side against each other. The last road will be taken alone. There might be crowds calling for blood or curtained window by the bed. It's best not to be afraid. Lift your attention for the appearance of the next road. It might be through a family of trees or a desert or on rolling waves of the sea. It's the ancient road the soul knows. We always remember it when we see it. It beckons at birth. It carries us home. Home. It's an interesting concept, one religion has grappled with. What is home? Where are we going? Unitarian Universalism makes no guarantee about what happens when our bodies cease to live. We honor the possibility of all belief systems. We look forward and say yes to what comes next. We are travelers, understanding that the journey is worthy even if we aren't sure of the destination. But here today, there's one thing that I can tell you for certain. It is a principle of physics that the universe does not gain or lose mass or energy. Ted's body is made of the same star stuff created at the beginning of all things, and it will go on to be part of the rocks and trees and streams and lives yet to come. The universe doesn't lose mass, and it also doesn't lose energy. Something of his essence, something of his spark is still here. Possibly he has gone on to join the great cloud of witnesses that asks us to live the dreams and remember the lessons of our ancestors. Certainly, many of us have memories of Ted that root him in our hearts and our minds, our relationship with him shaping us, changing us, that he may live on through us, that we here on earth may be the collective afterlife of our ancestors. Ted is no longer alive here today, but we are. And the best thing that we can do to commemorate Ted's life is to live our lives in ways that would honor his. So may we go forth this day and advocate fiercely for what we care about. May we dedicate ourselves to community. And in the end, when we've said our piece and done what we must do, may we relax and listen and be. May we follow our passions and sprinkle beauty and creativity wherever we go. And above all, may we have faith that our lives mean more than we can accomplish on this earth, but rest forever in the connections that we made while we were here. Priscilla asked me to end by reading a reflection that she wrote. At our wedding in 1993, which was at the Mountain in North Carolina, Let It Be a Dance, which we sung earlier, was sung by all who attended as we exited the deck at the end of the ceremony. Ted and I had met the composer, Rick Maston, at a SUSI, that's Southern Unitarian Universalist Summer Institute for the uninitiated, in the summer of 1993. I'd never heard the song before, but I really liked the music and the words, especially when we attended a workshop where Rick explained the words he wrote and the meaning behind them. I'd like to end this memorial with The Dance, bookending Let It Be a Dance. Ariana, would you come up and sing it for us?
Test.
Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Holding you, I held everything for a moment. Wasn't I a queen? But if I had known how the king would fall, who's to say I might have changed it all? So now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Yes, my life, it's better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
Thank you all for coming today and bringing your memories. We will have a reception directly to follow. You can sign the guest book, pick up a workshop if you would like. Please feel free to leave after the family has recessed.